The fifth lesson I want to talk about is stories. Nothing sells you like stories. Like, you can read on about, I can do this, I'm a hard worker, I respect my team. It's not the same as telling stories. Most interview questions will require you to tell stories. So the STAR method is a great way to answer behavioral and situational questions. So make sure you have a different story for each of these. So the way it works is the S is for situation. So you go about saying, okay, this was the situation I found myself in. The T stands for task. This is the task I had to do. A is for action, which is what did you do to resolve that issue, and R is the result. Keep that format in your head and make sure that you create stories around this. So what I've done now is I've given you a couple of situational and behavioral questions, and you can go ahead and create your STAR stories around them. Practice them until you know them offhand. So the first one I want to talk about is conflict resolution. Like, this always often comes up because regardless of where you work, regardless of what level you are in your career, there will always be conflict. How did you manage it? How will you manage it? And they want to hear from stories from your past experience, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So have a story that is very clear-cut. You know, every story should potentially end with a positive outcome. And even if it doesn't, make sure you turn it around and say, well, I learned that going forward, never to do this again, or I learned a different way to do that. It always has to end with you learning something. The second one is motivating others. This is very key, especially when you're looking for a leadership role. People want people who can motivate other people. So have stories around, how you worked with a team, or how you had a team that wasn't too happy, what you did, or how you worked well with your manager, things like that. Have a story on how you motivated others. Persuasion and dealing with resistance. This is very key, especially for leadership roles as well. Always have stories for how you dealt with resistance. What you have in your toolbox. What skills or what tactics did you use to overcome that? People are very interested in this. How you work collaboratively. The world is all about teamwork and collaboration these days. So you have to be able to show how you're able to create a team, how you're able to build a team, how you're able to, we already talked about conflict resolution within the team. How did you work collaboratively? What tools did you use? What systems did you put in place? What practices did you put in place? What framework did you design to help the team work collaboratively? Have your story in your back pocket. And then how to work independently. There's some roles that require you to be able to work alone and to churn out massive amount of work. You should be able to talk about how you work independently as well. And then your negotiation skills. Negotiation is not always about money. Sometimes negotiations are about requirements for a project, negotiation on your budget for the year, negotiation on what projects you need to carry out. So what skill set, what tools do you have in your toolbox for negotiation? Because everybody needs a good negotiator, and it shouldn't be about one person winning and the other person losing. Negotiation should always end in win-win. So make sure you have a story about that too. And then deadlines, strict deadlines. There are times where you will not meet deadlines, and that's not always the goal, but it does happen, and people want to know, how were you able to either meet the deadlines, or how were you able to manage a situation where you were unable to meet a deadline? How did you manage that? Did you communicate immediately to stakeholders, or did you go escalating and throwing everybody else under the bus, or did you, so how did you manage strict deadlines? What was the impact of the organization, and how did you recover from that? So have a story about all of these things in your back pocket, because that will make your interview process easier. And with that, we come to the end of Module 1. Don't forget to download the workbook, where I have more examples and more tips on how you can prepare for your interview. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in Module 2, where we get to the main show, the performance. See you soon.